Hi, everybody. I'm John, and this is Jerry. Welcome to the Mindfully Gay podcast. And we were thinking about what we're going to talk about today. And before we hit record, I was saying to Jerry, I think this one's going to be a therapy session. We're going to talk about.
You have good insurance.
I can I afford you, Jerry? Can I lie down here? Um, we're talking about self-doubt, but how did you describe it?
The challenge of believing it. We wanted to repackage this in a way.
Yes.
So I thought, well, let's take self-doubt and let's reframe it as the challenge in believing in ourselves.
Yeah, because that's what it is. And are you ready to hear my
Tell me about your mother.
exactly? I wasn't going to give any details.
Well, and I was telling you when I was driving back from the gym and get ready to meet with you, I thought, God, I feel like an expert on this topic because I do it to myself every day.
Every day. Oh my gosh.
But I think there's a theme,
Hmm.
right? That I think in the broader culture, but maybe even more so in the queer culture, right? That there's always this tendency of second guessing ourselves, not quite sure where to align ourselves, and consequently, I see a lot of people defaulting for external validations, as well as, and I work with clients. I just think the underlying challenge is people have this very limited concept of what they can or cannot do,
Mm-hmm.
or what's acceptable, right? And so, and we've talked about this with the shame and guilt thing, right?
Exactly.
What if I'm doing something that's outside the norm? Then I hide it because I don't want people to know, and behind that then becomes this narrative of shame and guilt.
Exactly. And I think you were right that people in general probably experience this and do experience some form of this. But I think what makes, I don't know, not necessarily unique, but I think as gay and queer people, there's this layer of, you know, being gay, being queer, being lesbian, trans, etc. There's that layer of not being good enough because of that, because society in some form has degraded us, has downcasted us, has cast this black shadow over us that we're no good. And so here we are out in the world trying to be ourselves, and with this veil of not feeling good about ourselves because someone else has told us we're not, we're second guessing ourselves all the time. What we wear, what I say, how I say it, the voice that I use, the career that I might choose, just second guessing just about everything that we choose because of that layer.
Yeah. So I was having this thought when I was driving up here, and you just kind of like set the stage for it. Is I know when I work with clients, whether they're coming here for like shamanic kind of reasons, or whether they're coming to my office, and you probably do this even when you work with people. And I know I've had Nick pointed out, you've pointed out, right? We're so good at hearing people's deficiencies around the story that they carry about themselves.
Yeah.
Right? I think Miguel Ruiz talks frequently about stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that's not going to be too disruptive. Okay. This concept of stories being, what is the schema, or what is the worldview I hold about myself? And in extreme cases, I will often ask people, at some point I'll just say, what is your spirituality? Like, what does that look like for you?
Mm-hmm.
And the way that I phrase spirituality is, in the broader context, I appreciate my role or place in the universe. I understand and a lot of people, their stories are so limited that they don't see their relevance in everyday life. And I call that a spiritual crisis.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you have to do yoga or be a shaman. And, sometimes just hiking and getting a perspective and appreciating your part of it is an act of spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
And so in extreme cases of people who may have these layers of doubt or disbelief in themselves may just limit the trajectory of the possibilities that are possible for them.
Yes.
So I have one other thing I want to say, and then I think we can do our therapy.
Okay. Ready.
Because to me, this is a very powerful image. In Native communities, particularly in the plains areas like North and South Dakota, here in Utah, they have a ceremony called the Sundance.
Mm-hmm.
And in some Sundance ceremonies, there is a ritual, and I know this is going to sound kind of gruesome, but a Sundance is 4 days in the summer, no food, no water.
Right.
In many cases. And in some extreme cases, like in the Lakota people, they will do piercings in the chest, and they'll hang from a pole.
Oh, yes, you've told her. Yes.
And they hang and they hang and they hang.
Wow.
And at some point, breaking through is literally a breaking through, a letting go, a release.
Mm-hmm.
Some people hang on these poles for a couple of days.
Wow. Oof.
In some traditions, though, and this is where I'm getting to the paradigm, in some traditions, there is a buffalo skull that is tethered to some eagle talons, and those talons are put in the person's back. And then they drag this bone,
Mm-hmm.
this skull, around the circle.
I see.
And they drag it and they drag it until eventually it rips free.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the metaphors of that is dropping the dry bones. And metaphorically, I think that's an interesting consideration in this discussion is sometimes we hold on to things for years. Sometimes we're socialized to see ourselves in a particular way. And I really believe a lot of people at some point have to kind of recognize the dry bones that they're carrying around. And at some point, we have to ask ourselves, what does it take to liberate ourselves from those old stories, from those dry bones? And and having let go of a few bones myself,
Mm-hmm.
right, that could be very challenging because I think at the other end of that is if I let go of this story, then who do I become?
Exactly. Exactly.
Right? It becomes a literal transformation around identity.
Mm-hmm. Because, yeah, go ahead.
Because if I'm letting go of this old story that says I can't do something, and if I'm now in a place of I can do it, I'm changed. And so I think these are some things, as we go into this conversation, these are things that I listen to within myself and as I sit with people, and often will provoke them to let go. And it is interesting how many people literally hold on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had people get angry at me because they think I've oversimplified it. And I say, the difference between where you're at right now and where you could be is the difference of a thought.
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
Because you're right. It's all of these things are related. Shame and guilt, identity, self-doubt. They're all interrelated in the stories that we tell ourselves, and the stories that we believe about ourselves, and how they become our storyline, or we take them on as our storyline. And if we're going to therapy or doing some kind of work around shifting, because we say that, well, I don't like this part of my life. It's like, well, and you challenge them by saying, well, what happens if you change the story and
Drop the
and
bones.
drop the bones? Well, I can't do that. But this, but that, or this or that, giving the excuses of why they can't release.
I will ask the question. I'm just curious, what's the payoff? Like, you're holding on to it. You say you don't like it, but there must be a payoff because you're not letting go of it. What's the payoff?
And they probably can't answer.
They're going, I don't like it.
I don't like it.
No, you do.
There's a part you might be able to articulate it right now, but there is a part that relishes in it and is nourished by it. It's what you know. It's what your psyche knows. It's what your body, your physicality, everything. That's what you know. And so I think there is, a legitimate fear of letting that part of yourself go because you don't know what's on the other side, or not sure of what's on the other side.
Let's talk about fear for a minute.
Yeah.
So if you're saying, I'm afraid,
Mm-hmm.
or that's kind of a scary idea, right?
Yeah.
Right. I was saying, okay, so what is the fear?
What is the fear?
And that's the response I get from most clients.
Yeah, they ask the question back, what is the fear? What is the fear? It's this fear of the unknown, but still, what is the fear?
That you'll get what you want?
That I'll be successful and be a wonderful person and see the light?
If I had to let go, I would probably, I went through this process right around the time I met Nick, who is a trainer and nutritionist, who's been on our show lots of times. And I was so ingrained. I tell people in presentations, I didn't realize how ageist I was until I got old.
Mm.
And as I started I realized that I was holding on to a belief that age looked a certain way. And then I was there, and I was completely living up to those expectations. Oh. And then as I started to challenge those expectations, mm-hmm. right? Those expectations are reinforced culturally. If you see a TV commercial with seniors on it, they're help! I've fallen. I can't get up.
Where's my Depends?
Right, Depends. We need yogurt that makes us shit well. We need
Rogaine for the balding.
Right, like there's such an ingrained philosophy mm-hmm. in our culture, and then people respond to that. Like suddenly I get called sir all the time, and not in a good way. Like at the grocery store.
Right.
Right. And then, but as I started to challenge the conditioned way of how to see myself, mm-hmm. and as I started adapting to this new paradigm, mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like I'm in my 40s. And I've been around people in their 40s and 50s, and I think, girl, you need to get on a treadmill. Right? But it was such a powerful lesson to me, because now I think, what foolishness that we've been seduced. And we treat it as a norm, and we just buy into it like stock and barrel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the fear that kept coming up was, well, what if I can't do it?
Oh.
And then the retort to that was, I just kept thinking, there's no harm in trying, or I can practice it, and would begin to execute things in these ways. Yeah. And so I think there's this powerful seduction around fear where we default to that without really examining what that's about and how much of it is an illusion.
Yeah, it's fascinating. You said a word that really resonated with me, and it's reinforcement. And because I know that's something I've experienced personally when I have my stories and kind of mindset around certain events in my life. I can maybe not easily, but I can pinpoint situations in my life that will reinforce my own self-doubt and that I'm not good enough, or my ideas and suggestions are not valued. And when I experience that, or when that gets reinforced, or my brain reinterprets it that way, I feel heartbroken and disappointed. And so that's part of my own self-doubt.
Mhm.
I just kind of melt into myself, and like, oh, I'm no good. No one values me and what I do and what I have to offer. And I can stew in that. It's not comfortable. I really don't like it, but I find myself, my cycle is, I can get out of that, and I'll talk about that in a moment, but I can get out of that feeling, but something else along my life path reinforces that thought, and then I go right back into that little trap again. And that's happened to me recently. And where I just felt so deflated because I felt like my opinions and values around a certain thing were just not, they weren't valued. And I didn't feel like I was being heard. And yet I was, and I mean, I can be a little bit more detailed. Um, I have a very close relationship with my mom, and and she she looks after me. I look after her, and she doesn't live in the same state right now. We're trying to get her to move to Utah, and uh, and for the last couple of years, we've been looking for a place for her to live here in Utah. Well, long story short, we've gone through literally 3 condos that we've bought and have sold. Because I'm here looking for a condo, trying to find the right one.
Could have Cottrell
I know,
Enterprises.
my gosh, trying to find the right one, and uh, and and she'll say, "Well, that sounds like a good one. Let's go for it." After looking and looking and looking, and we buy it, and then she sees it in person. Hmm, I don't know. I don't like it. Let's sell it. And this just happened again. And I was heartbroken.
I'm hearing this for the first time too.
Told you we're going to get personal here. Just, but the conversation was still around, well, John, what should I do? I want your opinion. And at first I was saying, um, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I just kind of let it go. And what I had to do for me, because just being back in that place of, well, here it is again, reinforced that my opinion is not valued. It gets tossed away, heartbroken. So I went on a little vacation, and that's a time for me just to do some self work and think and process, get into my emotions, and even put some words around my emotions, and figuring out what should I do, what can I do. It's like I need to say something about this to my mom, you know. And so after the vacation, we had a conversation on the phone, and it was, John, what should I do? And I need your opinion. I said, well, right now it's a little hard for me to give you my opinion. She said, well, why? And I said, because I don't feel like my opinion is being valued. Oh. And the interesting thing is, that was a tough thing for me to do, because in the past she would get defensive and kind of turn it around and almost reinforce again that feeling of, oh, I'm not good,
Mhm.
But she listened, and she heard, and was apologetic, and certainly didn't want me to feel this way. Um, and I have to say, just being able to put it into words and to confront, the situation and say what I was feeling allowed me to get out of that head space and that heart space and that reinforcement of, oh, I'm no good, my value or my opinion is no good, and just saying how I felt about it and being heard helped to diminish or fizzle out that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm on the, I'm starting to feel better again, just because of that. Otherwise, I just feel so underwater when I feel like that and not valued. But being able to confront it
Mm-hmm.
was so helpful.
Yeah.
And confronting it and being heard. That was the main thing. Being heard.
I have to ask, did it influence her process?
Say again?
Did it influence her process knowing that you finally said, I'm kind of not able to go there with you right now?
It did. I think it helped her to kind of figure out what she needed to do, and knowing how heavy this was on me,
Mm-hmm.
to relinquish me of some of the responsibility of looking for a condo for her.
Yeah.
That she will do that. She will do that. And but that was all kind of wrapped also in, John, I love you. You've been taking good care of me and looking out for me and finding these condos for me, and I feel like, she felt like she made a mistake. I mean, it was just a lot of uh, acknowledgement and her part in the whole dance of it all.
Yeah.
But yeah, just that self-doubt which just sat so heavy.
Do you know what's interesting about this process?
Mm.
And maybe we can just talk about this for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Is you said I went away on vacation
Mm-hmm.
to do my work.
Yeah.
And now I think you and I know what that means, but I think we should break that down, because one thing that I'm learning is the process of introspection, the process of being contemplative.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know people who are incredibly hard on themselves and think of that as introspection. And to me, introspection or contemplation, or like when you went away, right? So it might be useful to talk about what was your process on that vacation.
Yeah.
Like what is the process of introspection look like for you?
Right. I'm able to, because I had that experience with my mom and had these feelings, and what I tend to do is just get wrapped up in work to avoid the feeling. And so I found myself extra busy, especially through this past month.
Looking for condos.
Right? Just extra busy so I can avoid the feeling of what I was, really sensing, and feeling a little tired and run down. And those are cues for me. Like, oh, John, you need a vacation. Just to get away from work and to relax a little bit. But as you were saying, it also, going away for me allows me to, yes, put work aside, my responsibilities aside, my appointments and all of that aside, so I can come back to me. So I can take some time for stillness, quiet, alone time, really, to do my process. And processing for me is really just being still, sitting, relaxing, and getting into, whatever thoughts may come up, letting them all kind of mull around in my head, and letting feelings come up.
But what is the inner dialogue when you're sitting there at the pool with your sarong lightly draped in the appropriate places?
How did you know?
I've seen it. But I'm wondering, I think this would be helpful for people, like what's the inner dialogue sound like?
It's interesting because it is a dialogue. It's as if I'm talking to myself in my head.
Yeah.
Like a thought will come up. Trying to think of just with this particular scenario.
Mom wants another condo.
Mom wants another condo, or she wants to sell this condo, and I get a feeling, and that, what's that feeling? Because this is the issue. Like, well, I feel like I just got punched in the stomach and punched in the heart, really, and just feel gutted. And being able to name that, gosh, it's hard to talk about or just put words to it.
When you say I got gutted or I felt that pain in my heart,
Mhm.
because
Because
that emotion was driven by what?
the emotion was driven by that feeling of, well, sell the condo because I don't like it. You're not good, John. You didn't make a good decision. So we need to sell it and get rid of it. But the message I'm hearing is I made a bad decision.
Mm,
Self doubt.
yeah.
and and I guess I just allow myself to feel that, but then I have to ask myself, is this all, is that my identity, or is this situational? Is this related to this particular thing? And it certainly is. It is related to this particular circumstance. And um, telling myself or asking myself, well, what can you do? And I think I start to construct maybe a script for myself on how do I face this situation? How do I put this feeling into words that my mother can understand and hear,
Mm-hmm.
to convey that I'm not in a good space, and for me to get out of this muck and feeling down on myself. um, I need to get it off my chest. That's the goal for me, is I need to get this off my chest.
Yeah. What are you looking for by getting it off your chest?
What am I looking for?
Yeah. If I get this off my chest, if I tell mom how I'm feeling,
Mm-hmm.
then what do I accomplish in that?
Well, if it's received, then I feel a weight lifted. Then I feel like I'm myself again. Meaning, not that layer of self doubt and questioning what I do, but I do make good decisions. And I'm an intelligent person. And I did a lot of work to do this. So there's an internal process, but there's also the hope that there's going to be an external process that's going to help me. And like I mentioned earlier, it's being acknowledged and being heard. And I did get that.
What if mom had gone to her old script?
Mm-hmm.
What if you dared to release it and she's just like, "Oh, John, that's silly. Just do it right this time."
Mm-hmm.
I know your mother; she would never say
Right,
that.
right.
Right. But what if mom had not received it in the way that she did?
Mm-hmm. My old script in responding to that would have been, well, okay then. And I would just shut it down and change subject, go on to something else, hang up the phone, that kind of thing, and still be stewing in my own stuff.
Mm.
If she responded that way and I was still in this process now, more present, I think I would try to be convincing. I need you to hear what I'm saying. um, you don't have to react necessarily. I'm doing this because I need to get this off my chest. I mean, it's not that, I mean, you didn't create this feeling. I'm feeling this feeling. And in order for me to move past it and through it, I just need to say it out loud. That will help me.
Mm.
And even if she just said, I hear you, I think that would have been just fine. I mean, she gave more than that, but an old script from mom would have been kind of what you said, just shut it down and, oh, you're a grown man, get over it, that kind of thing.
Mm. Yeah.
But I think she's also kind of gotten in tune with herself and working through things, and know that it is important to kind of talk through feelings, right? Um, so I'm fortunate in that regard,
Yeah.
that we can now kind of move forward. But I think, if she had responded more defensively, I would have gotten defensive too, and do it either. Then I've got a choice, either to back down and stay in that state, or I just need to say this.
Right. There's two things that are running through my head. One is, and I paraphrase this, I don't know that you'll find this quote anywhere, but in the Four Agreements, Miguel Ruiz, anyways, says something along the line that people, places, and circumstances show up as secondary characters to our own primary story. People, places, and circumstances show up as secondary characters to my own primary story.
Yes.
And so
yes.
if my primary story is that I'm less than, then I will see things and experience people and situations as confirming that story.
Yep. I can attest to that.
Yeah. And then the other thing I'm thinking about this situation that I think can be generalized in lots of ways, and Charles has always kind of pushed this concept with me, is can I engage people and liberate myself from whatever outcome? Like if I engage with you, I have this desired outcome, right? And I need John to do this or that, or to show up in a particular way for me to, and Charles would challenge to say, can you find your authentic vibe, if you will, and have it liberated from somebody else's response? Or can I let go of them needing to show up in a particular way?
Yeah.
Right. And so, wow, if my partner just did this, I'd be so happy. Or if they would just change this about themselves, right? We make our own happiness conditioned on these external circumstances. And we're so addicted to that,
Yes.
that we look for it, we search for it, we beg for it. And yet what I have found is getting closer to my more authentic voice is the ability to let go of everyone. Ruiz says it perfectly, but again, I give him credit. Maybe I just came to this conclusion with something he wrote. But at times people say, God, you offended me. And I thought, well, wow, that wasn't my intention, so that must be your story.
Yeah. Right.
If I intended to offend you, you would know it.
You would have known it. Yeah.
But that's because people are kind of dependent. If I'm offended by you, right, it's because I'm dragging something around and you haven't measured up to that ideal.
That measured outcome that I'm looking for.
Yeah. And so that's why I asked that question about what if your mom hadn't responded? Because can John find his, I guess the place of doubt is around, I don't make good decisions, which I find so surprising because I think you have some of the most brilliant ideas we've ever discussed. Right? But that's my story for you. Right? So, how does John find his own inner brilliance?
Yeah. It's, I think I'm lucky because, we've talked a little bit about, how do I show up in the world? I feel very multifaceted and I can dip my toes in a lot of things. And I tell, people say, John, you do so many things. You're a jack of all trades, that kind of thing. And I say, yeah, I just do what I like to do. And that really is it. I just do what I like to do. And so if I'm baking or I'm on my iPad or playing with my iPhone or listening to music, I'm just doing things that I enjoy because it brings me joy. And so those are my fallbacks. And so when I find myself in the muck of it all, or under the veil of self-doubt for whatever reason, then I know I've got some go-tos. Because even in this process before I spoke to mom, I was doing my self-care, which is I go to the gym. I love that. That's me. I go to the gym, you know, go get a bacon cheeseburger. Love that. I'm playing on the computer, you know, um, learning some new things about AI or whatever. Uh, that that stuff nurtures me, and it reminds me of my value, or I bake or I cook or something like that. I just dive into the things I know that make me feel good.
Mhm.
But I still, and that gives me some fluff in a way, some padding. So when I do need to confront and do the real thing, I've got the padding.
Mhm.
So I feel lucky in that way, and I know not many people have that padding where nothing to fall back on, or they seem like they feel like they don't have something to fall back on. If there's an expectation of how the other person is going to respond if I confront them with my feelings, and it backfires, then you just fall deeper into that void.
Well, imagine how this would change capitalism in this country. I mean, literally, I think it's huge because how many people go to work and they're frustrated,
Mm,
they feel undervalued, they
mm,
feel underrespected, and at some level, why we are getting out of life where our collusion is,
yeah.
right? And so it's my belief that I have to be anchored to that job for
Mm-hmm.
those many hours at that pay
Mm-hmm.
because somewhere in me believes I'm only worth that.
Worth that.
And I won't challenge the narrative of my supervisor or my boss for fear of
Mm-hmm.
disappointment or being changed through I'm going to be seen as not valuable for that amount,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? um,
Mm-hmm.
I, I have a man I'm working with right now who is about my age and has had some really interesting challenges in the workforce. And his paradigm is so strongly rooted in the idea that he can't because of his age, that he's not respected because of his age. Everything is the issue is not what's happening around him. The issue is I believe this about myself and everything else is showing up in support of that.
Yes. Wow.
And so imagine what would happen if we went to the workforce completely confident
Mm-hmm.
in what we bring.
Mm-hmm.
Just the paradigm shift, not thank you for giving me this job, but you're welcome for hiring me,
Exactly.
for
Exactly.
having me,
Yeah.
right? I'm worth every penny
Mm-hmm.
and more. In fact, I'm giving you a discount
Mm-hmm.
out
Right.
of the generosity of my heart. I mean,
Mm.
culturally, right, there's some kind of mechanism that has us so seduced, right? We look to our politicians for the
Mm.
solutions because we don't think we have the capacity to do it ourselves. We look to religion
That's big. Yeah.
in that same way,
Mm-hmm.
which is why we have a lot of religious people who aren't very spiritual
Mm-hmm.
because they still haven't found their value.
Their value. Yeah. It's based on perception and how there's think they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, I think of these cultural narratives where tribal members are profoundly respected for what they bring. Communities prepare themselves to receive someone,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the
Yeah.
Aldoma's community.
Yeah.
And here we're a culture that treats um, it really does seem to center around capitalism and the idea of rising to the top of some kind of financial hierarchy
Yeah.
where the power is,
Yeah.
which is a belief because there is great abundance around us everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But our story keeps us from tapping into it.
From tapping into that.
And I think just clarifying this a little bit, right? For so long in our history, first of all, we weren't even acknowledged as an identity. Then we were acknowledged, we were promptly pathologized and criminalized and hospitalized.
Oh my gosh.
Right? And because we're not part of the privileged norm, that makes us therefore abnormal. And so, right, we're having to kind of reinvent the story of who we are and what our place is in society. And the challenge is, right, how do we make that seductive?
Yeah, how do we make that seductive? How do we do that?
Is this ruining
Yeah, we'll find out.
I don't even know what they're doing over there.
How would you approach that? Maybe either personally or just generally, in regards to that layer of being queer and the self-doubt stories that we kind of walk around with, and being able to be authentic and release those things and see our worth and see our value.
Well, if you can't tell, for whatever reason, the gardeners next door have become activated. Apparently with chainsaws.
Really?
You're asking that question, I'm pausing because I think, what drew me into the path that I'm on as far as the shamanistic approaches is learning about these indigenous societies who saw our role and place in society as critical for spiritual well-being, for community well-being. And that was such a powerful contrast from the Christian paradigm that says, we don't want you, that it immediately kind of shifted my thinking there. And where I'm personalizing it is within the queer community. What do I bring? And I go back in the day, we used to have this club called The Sun. And The Sun, when you walked into the dance floor to the left, there was this big, tall set of stairs. Yeah. And in those days, you would go to the clubs by yourself, but you knew you were going to run across people. And for whatever reason, none of my friends were there yet. And I was just kind of standing there awkwardly by myself. And the narration in my head was, oh man, I'm the only one standing here doing nothing. And people are going to think I'm desperate or something. And started running this negative script. And so I climbed up these stairs just to get a better view of what was happening. And it occurred to me that I was not the only person holding up the wall. And I thought, wow, how interesting. I was so absolutely convinced that I was the only one. And when I shifted my perspective, I realized, oh my God, there's a freaking community out here. There are just people waiting to be approached.
Right.
And so for me, when I'm doing that introspection, whenever I'm challenged with some kind of less than story, the inner dialogue just simply asks the question, is that true? Like, is that really true? And what's the evidence that supports it?
Right.
And what's the evidence that doesn't? And often when I say, is that true? It's like, no, yeah, that's a story in my head. And so go back to The Sun. I didn't do this, but if I would notice that I was in that place, I would probably go downstairs and target a couple people to just go up and say, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
How's tonight going for you?
Right.
I think we've talked about this at the gym.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, all these people are like fucking trying to screw each other on Grindr, but they won't talk to each other at
In,
the gym.
yeah, in person.
And so I've just gone up and say, hey, I think I've seen you online before. My name's Sherry. And I've picked up a lot of good friends that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sometimes they're just social friends that I see at the gym and whatever. But now we nod, now we connect. But the story in my head was the story that I was holding on to is, oh, I'm too old, I'm too ugly, I'm too whatever. They wouldn't be interested, and I locked myself in a corner, or on the treadmill, or feeling alone, and then I thought, yeah, I'm not going to do that. And if someone's offended by that, then that's my favor.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So I think that's how
Yeah.
that question of, is that true?
Yeah.
Is that absolutely a truth?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's interesting when I've shifted my story, the interactions I'm having with people are so much more profound
Mm-hmm.
than when I hold on to the less than story.
Yeah. And it seems like, I mean, tell me how you get to that ability to ask that question. Because I think it resembles, kind of a grand, maybe not so grand, but a thing like I went on vacation. I had to get away um, to have peace and quiet, some space, so I can do some processing, so I can ask those kinds of questions. Is that real? Is that not real? What's the proof, etc. And I think there's certainly an advantage of, if you can, go on a retreat or a vacation or take some time off or whatever to do that work, but the ability to do that almost like on the spot. It's a similar thing. It's a way. It's you have to almost. What I envision is checking out for a second, stepping out of self for a moment, and kind of looking at, just like going up on those stairs at the sun and looking down and out. You had to step out and back to
Well,
see.
you've been with me to Peru a few times,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think the reason Peru is so profound is it takes us out of the familiar.
Yeah.
We habitually get locked into familiar terrain. And when you get off the plane in Cusco or in Iquitos, you are in a different world.
Yeah.
And it immediately crashes your sense of privilege.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to scramble to kind of reinvent yourself. Same thing when we go to Mongolia, right? I think for me, I've done a lot of that traveling. A lot of my mentors and teachers have often taken me kind of psychically and spiritually outside of privileged comfort zones.
Yeah.
And I've had to very quickly examine who I am in that moment.
In that moment, yeah.
I remember the first time I did ayahuasca, and I have no drug history. I barely drink. And so the first time I did ayahuasca, it was a very overwhelming experience,
Sure. Mm-hmm.
very powerful. But I heard the medicine say to me, do you trust me?
Mm.
And then it repeated. It's like, do you trust me? And in that moment, my thought was, it's time to walk my talk.
Mm.
And I said yes, and then the medicine said, let go.
Wow.
And so at that moment, letting go felt incredibly overwhelming because I was kind of having my own death experience.
Mm-hmm.
But as I let go, it totally crashed the fear associated with death, because it turned into this amazing experience. But it had to go to that very unfamiliar place.
Mm-hmm.
But even at the very root of like cognitive-based therapies, right, or work by Byron Katie, right, there's that moment in recognizing the inner dialogue where you're invited to challenge it. What's the payoff? I'm holding onto a story that says I'm too old. What's the payoff? Right? And then it's like, the answer is terribly not flattering.
Or you can't come up with an answer.
I'm afraid. What if I fail? Um, the payoff. It allows me to avoid the issue, right? And I don't ever like to look bad, even to myself.
Yeah, I hear you.
And so I have that moment and I think, okay, yeah, the payoff kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And I want a different
I
payoff.
want a different payoff.
And so what does it take? It's I have to then re-examine. So like today, even at the gym, we were doing some pretty difficult movements. And Nick suggested a weight that felt like it was way outside of my capacity.
Mm.
And my first thought was to mitigate what he had said, and I thought, no, if I can't do it, I can't do it. But I don't even know I can't do it until I try.
Until I try it.
And then I realized, oh, I can do it. It's hard. It's not easy, but it's doing what it's supposed to do.
Right.
Right. And so I think I have several voices in my head at any given time.
I hear you. Same here.
And I just think I've just learned to tune into it. And I very naturally now, and when I teach this to people that say, oh, that's so awkward. It's so not familiar. It's like, that's the point.
That's it.
And, but now it's become so familiar. It's almost like a new language.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I have doubts. I often have, like, pride's coming up and everyone's super body conscious about pride. But my reframe is, I feel like I've worked really hard and I enjoy what I have. Not everyone may not enjoy it.
But I do.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel good about it. And I'm going there to celebrate me, not them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not there to get their validation.
Right.
I want my own.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I think it'd be valuable just to have a little list that you can challenge yourself, and the list of questions to ask yourself when you find yourself in these moments of self-doubt or whatever thing that feels crippling and and under the veil senses for you. And it's things like, is this true?
Yeah.
and to really ask the question and answer the question. For me, when I find myself, my quick kind of get out of those oh I can't do it moments is I have to say out loud, John Cottrell, just do it. Like, okay. As a self-motivator, as a self-starter, as to kind of get through a thing, either because I'm lazy or I don't want to do it or whatever the case may be. It's just do it, get it over with.
Yeah.
Just be done.
Yeah.
Get to the other side of it. And for me, when I do that, and this is what I like to tell people, give yourself a success. Set yourself up for success. If it's, you get up and just wash the dishes and now your kitchen's clean, that's a check on that box. Yeah. It's done. You don't have to worry about that anymore. You picked up that heavy weight, you did 1 rep, you did it.
Yeah.
Check.
Well, and I think sometimes I've had people say, well, this is just too much work. And it's like, all right, well, what you're telling me is I like what I have. I'm not sure why you're paying me. If you like it so much, right? And I have fired clients at some point to say, you know what? I don't think this is working because, quite frankly, I think you just want to come in and complain about life. And I'm probably just not the best therapist for that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are truly interested in something innovative, transformative, if I'm working harder than you as a therapist, I'm going to charge you more.
Yeah. My trick, or maybe not trick, but just my spidey senses. If someone's doing that with me in my clinical work, if I'm feeling frustrated and bored, then okay, wait a minute.
Yeah. They have somehow seduced me into joining their party.
Yes, exactly. And so I'll use that. It's like, this is very interesting. I'm just hearing you say the same thing over and over again. And my response to it is, I'm getting bored. I'm getting frustrated. Is this where is that a reflection of maybe how you're feeling, perhaps?
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, either we can just stay along with that or get out of that or change that
Yeah,
somehow. Yeah.
Well, I hope this recording, because he's doing yard work. They cut down the forest over here. And this morning it was so quiet out here. We thought, let's do it outside.
Let's do it outside. A change of scenery.
Never again.
But a very interesting, introspective topic.
I feel like there's like a part 2 to this.
This part 2, part 3. Because this certainly is a process. I was able to kind of share my recent experiences with my feelings of self-doubt and what I did in real time to kind of start moving through that, because I still I'm still kind of moving through that. But I think some of those primary things that one can do is start to recognize what's the benefit of me staying in this space? What's the benefit of hanging on to this story? Those old bones, those dry bones. What would it feel like to let go, to release, to feel light?
Yeah.
Do you even know what that even feels like?
Yeah.
What it's even like? Maybe, fancy yourself to try it out, experiment, see what the other side is potentially like. Because I think for you, like you said, when you started working out, it was hard, but then things shift.
Yeah.
Physically, mentally, emotionally, where it becomes a new paradigm, a new
and success
storyline.
Breeds success.
Yeah.
And so when you start to get it,
Mm-hmm.
then there's this momentum.
It's a momentum.
Yeah.
Things start moving, and if you want to get things moving, and that's part of the process. It is recognizing where you are and is it working for you?
Yeah. Well, that was invigorating. Hope you enjoyed the porch. We were looking forward to a lot of interesting topics. We're always interested in what you want to hear from us.
Yeah.
And again, neither one of us are sitting here as like the gay experts, but what we want to do is be able to initiate or be a catalyst for conversations at your brunches or with your friends.
Right.
Be in absolute disagreement with us, but have the conversations.
Right.
I was thinking this morning, one thing that Nick said when we first started the podcast that I've always enjoyed, at some point he goes, I didn't even know we needed to have these conversations. And I've heard that from a few other people.
That's
like,
it.
You've got me thinking about things that I never even knew I needed to think about.
Which really has become the theme of this show.
Yeah. And so that's our invitation for you. So we'll be back next week with a new and exciting topic. Tomorrow, this weekend is our Pride Festival. You're not going to get this until fall. But Pride is not a day or a weekend. It's an everyday event. So happy Pride Day.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Mindfully Gay podcast. If you enjoyed our conversation today, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. This way you won't miss out on any of our upcoming episodes, where we continue to explore fascinating topics and share meaningful stories. Your support means the world to us. See you in the next episode.